Sup guys, it's Alex here and welcome to another edition of the Bracketology update. This one is for February 4th, 2020, and we are starting to get into the thick of college basketball. The Super Bowl this past Sunday was won by the Chiefs, and now all of those fans are going to be flooding to college basketball. Now that it's getting close to tournament time, we only have 1 month left of the regular season, and man, I am pumped for the rest of this college basketball season. It's been a crazy one, and it's going to get even crazier as the rest of the season progresses. And before I get started into it too much, I just want to say thank you guys for all the support on my most recent videos. We're getting about like 600 to 700 views each on the different bracketologies. And as I mentioned in the past ones, I will be doing an NCAA tournament ticket giveaway if I hit 5,000 subscribers by the start of the tournament. So make sure you subscribe for that. Make sure you tell your friends to subscribe, and then I'll be doing a video here in the next couple of days or weeks about the different details and stuff on how to enter. So make sure you subscribe for that. Make sure you're on the lookout for that. Without any further ado, let's go and get into the analysis part of it. At first, in the, I think that's the South Regional up here, if I want to say, yeah, South Regional in Houston, we have Baylor remaining the 1 seed up there. They are playing like the best team, if not the best team in college basketball right now. USC is down to a 9, Butler's down to a 5, Furman's up to a 12, LSU's up to a 4, Winthrop's up to a 13, Penn State's down to a 6, Florida's down to an 11, Seton Hall's down to a 3, Colgate's down to a 14, Illinois is down to a 7 after losing. They had like a 6-game undefeated streak, but then lost to Iowa this past weekend, so that's why they're down to a 7. Then down here in the East Regional, we have Gonzaga remaining the 1. Ohio State is now up to an 8. They are on a 2-game win streak, but I wouldn't read too much into that because, I think they beat Nebraska and then Indiana, which, Indiana's not a bad win at all, but I wouldn't read too much into that. They're up to an 8, though, so I'll give them credit. Kentucky's down to a 5 after losing to Auburn. It's hard to win a basketball game when the other team gets 44 free throws like Auburn did, so I wouldn't read too much into that either. North Texas is down to a 13. The playing game right there for the last 4 in are VCU and Mississippi State. Maryland is up to a 3. Rhode Island's up to a 10. Then up here in the Midwest Regional, we have Kansas as the 1, which I will be going to the Elite 8 in Indianapolis. Haven't decided about the Sweet 16 yet. That's going to just depend on work and stuff like that. But I will be seeing the Elite 8, so hopefully I'll get to see some good games there. Kansas remains the 1 there. Wichita State is down to an 8. Arkansas is down to a 9. Then we got Tulsa into the field as the automatic qualifier from the American Conference. Auburn's up to a 4 after the win against Kentucky, as I mentioned earlier. Arizona is up to a 6. Wright State's down to a 14. BYU is up to a 7. Indiana's down to a 10 after that loss to Ohio State, as I mentioned earlier. Then down here in the West Regional, we have San Diego State remaining the 1. They're still the only undefeated team in college basketball left. They have not lost. They've had a couple scares here in the past couple weeks, but they just keep on winning. William & Mary is down to a 16. Michigan's up to an 8. Then Creighton is up to a 5. Oregon's down to a 4. New Mexico State is up to a 13. Then the other playing game, as you can see right there, is Purdue and Memphis. Purdue ended up somehow beating Northwestern. They had a crazy comeback near at the end of the game. I think it was on Saturday. So they are still in the tournament. If they had lost that game, they definitely would have been out. Then Memphis remains the other last 4 in team there. Then West Virginia is up to a 2. Then we have Eastern Washington up to a 15. Then for a look at the bubble, Big Ten is now down to 11 teams after Minnesota fell out. SEC is second with 6 teams. On the bubble, we have Rhode Island, Indiana, Florida, and Oklahoma as the last 4 byes. Last 4 in, which were those playing games, are Mississippi State, Purdue, VCU, and Memphis. First 4 out are Virginia, who's making their way back after beating Florida State this past week. Then Minnesota, East Tennessee State, and Xavier, who I said beat Seton Hall. And then the next 4 out are Cincinnati, Alabama, Georgetown, and Utah State. So as you guys know, with every bracketology that I've been doing, since Brackify got shut down, I have to do this in the Excel document, but I think it's the best way to visualize it without different logos and stuff. And since Brackify got shut down, instead of like writing it on a piece of paper or just like going through and pointing to the teams I think are going to win and trying to keep track of that, I think this is the best way to do it, and that's what I've been doing. So first we have Baylor versus Texas Southern, Robert Morris. Obviously, you got to go with Baylor winning that one. Then Wisconsin and USC. As much as I've been trashing Wisconsin recently, they did get a big win by 1 point over Michigan State. So I'm going to go with them beating USC there. I think USC lost over this past weekend too, so don't quote me on that, but I think they did. I'm going to go with Butler beating... Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with Furman beating Butler. Furman is the representative from the Southern. They've actually been killing it recently, which is why they're a 12 seed as the mid-major. And Butler has just been falling as of late. They're now down to a 5 after being like a number 1 seed at one point. So I'm going to go with an upset there. LSU, I think, will beat Winthrop. Then I'm going to go with Penn State beating Florida, though I could easily see Florida winning that one. Seton Hall will beat Colgate. Wouldn't be too worried about that. Illinois, I think we'll be able to hold on there and beat Stanford. Then we got Dayton beating South Dakota State. Up next, we have Baylor versus Wisconsin. I'm going to go with Baylor winning that one. I'm going to just go ahead and finish out this region. Then LSU, I think, can hold on against Furman. As much as I'd love to see Furman win that one as like a Cinderella team, I don't think that's going to happen. Miles Powell will lead Seton Hall past Penn State. Then we got Dayton beating Illinois, battle of the two teams that no one expected to really be in that position at the beginning of the season. Baylor and LSU, I'd love to see Baylor win this one, and I think they will as well. They've only lost one time this season, and it was at the beginning of the season to Washington, which they led that game for basically the entire game. So I'm going to go with them beating LSU. Then Seton Hall and Dayton, I really like these two teams. I hate that I have to choose between these two teams in the Sweet 16 of all places. I'd love to see this game in general with Obi Toppin versus Miles Powell. But I'm going to go with the team that has the better supporting cast, in my opinion, in Seton Hall with the 3 seed. And then for a spot in the Final Four, Baylor versus Seton Hall, I got to go with Baylor. As much as I'd love to see Miles Powell and Seton Hall win, they just lost at home to Xavier, so I can't put the confidence in them to beat Baylor on a neutral site. Then up next, we're going to move over to the top right regionals, switch it up. Usually I go down to the bottom one there, but I'm going to switch it up and go over here to this right one with Kansas beating North Florida. I think that one's a pretty easy one to pick. I don't see a 16 seed upsetting a 1 seed this year. Wichita State, I think, will lose to Arkansas. Arkansas has kind of been falling off the map recently, but I think they'll be able to hold on and get the victory there against Wichita State. Iowa will beat Tulsa. Tulsa's a really good pick for like a 12-over-5 upset, but they have to run into Iowa, who's playing they're playing the best basketball in the nation, or one of the teams that is playing the best. Then Auburn, I think, will be able to beat Stephen F. Austin, though Stephen F. Austin did beat Duke at Duke earlier this season, so they could pull off the upset there. Arizona, I think, will hold on against Oklahoma. As you guys know, I don't like Oklahoma at all, so that one's an easy pick for me. Then I'm going to go with Michigan State beating Wright State. Minor upset here in picking Indiana over BYU. BYU jumped from a 10 to a 7 in the past bracketology. Then Louisville will beat UC Irvine. Then we have Kansas versus Arkansas. These two teams seem to always end up playing each other in my recent bracketologies that I've been doing. Then I'm going to just keep going with Kansas. I mean, they just beat Texas last night, and they're continuing their great run of the season so far. Iowa and Auburn. I'm going to go with Iowa with Luke Garza, I think is his name. He's been absolutely killing it this season. I think he'll be able to push them past Auburn there. Michigan State, I think, will hold off against Arizona and move on to the Sweet 16. And then Louisville will beat Indiana in a battle of the regional teams between Louisville and Indiana there right on the border of the Ohio River. Then I'm going to go with my first upset pick here, or like true upset pick. I know I had a couple first-round ones, but I'm going to go with Iowa beating Kansas. I think Kansas is a bit inconsistent. I know they've been killing it recently, but I really like if Iowa can catch fire and keep their offensive explosions going. I think they can get the victory there over Kansas with a 5 seed in the Elite Eight, and then I think that Louisville, with Jordan Nwora and his supporting cast, I think will be able to overpower Cassius Winston and Michigan State. And then for a spot in the Final Four, as much as I'd love to see Iowa continue their run to the Final Four there and their Cinderella run through the tournament, I don't know if you would consider that a Cinderella run as a 5 seed, but I am going to go with Louisville winning that one. They just are too complete of a team, and I think they'll be able to get the victory there and move on to the Final Four. So down here we'll go to the bottom right regional. We have San Diego State beating William & Mary. That one's pretty obvious there. Then Michigan, I think, will be able to beat St. Mary's. Michigan is finally starting to turn that around after that free fall they had during the month of January. Creighton, I think, will be able to beat Vermont. I'd love to see Vermont win that one, and they could easily pull off the upset there as the 12-over-5. But Creighton's playing some pretty good basketball recently. They have the best offense in the Big East, I think, is the conference. And they'll be able to continue that going. Then Oregon with Peyton Pritchard will beat New Mexico State. Colorado, I think, will beat the winner of Purdue and Memphis, which at this point I think would probably be Purdue. Then Florida State, I think, will beat Little Rock. Northern Iowa, I think, will pull off the upset here, 10-over-7 over Rutgers. Poor Rutgers, man. Then we got West Virginia beating Eastern Michigan. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we have San Diego State versus Michigan. I'm going to go with San Diego State winning that one and give them the respect they deserve. Then Oregon, I think, will be able to move past Creighton with Peyton Pritchard. Then we got Florida State moving past Colorado there in the 3-over-6 game. And then I'm going to go with an upset pick right here and go with Northern Iowa, the 10-over-2 over West Virginia. West Virginia is playing typical Bob Huggins basketball with the stout defense and pressure in the backcourt with a full court press. But I think that they're on the offensive end, they're a little bit lacking for my taste, and I think that could be right for an upset from Northern Iowa. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we have San Diego State losing to Oregon. I think Oregon will be able to pull off a 4-over-1 upset there. I really like that team with Peyton Pritchard. Then I'm going to go with Florida State beating Northern Iowa, and that means I'm putting Florida State in the Elite Eight for all you Florida State fans out there that keep commenting on my videos and saying I don't give them the respect they deserve. But then I'm going to put Oregon with Peyton Pritchard in the Final Four. I think that team's really good, and I think if they can stop those 20-3 runs like I mentioned earlier, I think that they can put that team in the Final Four. So up next, we're going to have this last regional here. I think this one is the West one. Don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. But we got Gonzaga beating the winner of Monmouth and NC A&T. Texas Tech, I think, will be able to hold off against Ohio State. Ohio State, I don't have any confidence in picking them right now. Then we have Kentucky beating Yale. Then Villanova beating North Texas. I think that one's a pretty easy one there, though that could be an upset pick, but I think that one's a pretty easy one. Marquette with Marcus Howard will beat the winner of VCU and Mississippi State, which I have no clue who would end up winning that game, so I'm glad I don't have to pick that one. Then Maryland, I think, would beat Bowling Green. Then we have Houston losing to Rhode Island. Rhode Island out of the A-10 there, pulling off the upset. Then we have Duke beating Murray State. I think I only had one 7 seed beat a 10 seed in this bracketology. Up next, we have Gonzaga beating Texas Tech to move on to the Sweet 16. Kentucky, I think, will be able to hold off there against Villanova as the 5/4. Marquette, I think, will be able to pull off a 6/3 here with Marcus Howard over Maryland. Maryland, I think, will end up being like a 4 once the tournament time actually comes around. But I think I really like Marquette with Marcus Howard in that situation. Then Duke, I think, will hold off Rhode Island. Gonzaga and Kentucky, as much as I want to be a homer here and pick Kentucky, I can't. I don't have any reason why Kentucky would be able to beat Gonzaga in that situation, so that's why I'm going to go with Gonzaga. Then we got Duke and Marquette. I'm going to go with Duke winning that one. I think they have a much better team overall, and I think they could pressure Marcus Howard there and make the other people on that team beat them, and I don't think they'll be able to. And then I'm going to put Gonzaga in the Final Four. I think they've only lost one time this season to Michigan in that battle for Atlantis. Have no reason to bet against them right now. I'm going to go with Gonzaga in the Final Four, which sets up Final Four matches between Baylor and Gonzaga, and then Louisville and Oregon. At first, we're going to have Baylor. I think that they'll lose to Gonzaga. I know I've been picking Baylor in these past few bracketologies, but I think I'll switch it up a little bit. Go with Gonzaga. Both teams only have one loss this season, and people always doubt Gonzaga. I think they'll be able to get the victory there. Then Louisville and Oregon. I think that Louisville's going to end up winning that one there against Oregon. I think that Jordan Nwora will be able to, or if Peyton Pritchard can take advantage of Louisville's kind of guard disadvantage there, then Oregon stands a really good chance of winning that game. But I think that the rest of that supporting cast on the Louisville Cardinals and Chris Mack as the coach will be able to push them past Oregon and into the national championship game. But then I'm going to have Gonzaga win it all. As I said earlier, they're not getting the respect they deserve right now, even with only one loss in the number 2 team in the nation. And that's why I'm going to pick Gonzaga with Killian Tilly and a lot of other good players. I think that they'll be able to win the national championship. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did. Make sure you comment your own predictions below. I really love reading through those and seeing what everybody says. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later.